Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with Dr. Pia Orleane and cullen-baird-smith. And they're here today to share with us their new book, Pleiadian-earth-energy Astrology, Charting the Spirals of Consciousness. Now, Pia and Cullen have accessed parallel dimensions since childhood. Pia and Cullen are interstellar communicators bringing forth the voice of Larkma, requiring their combined energies. Stepping from their traditional careers as clinical psychologists and forensic anthropologists, they have dedicated their lives to bringing the wisdom of Larkma to the world. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Pia and Cullen.
Thank you, Marianne. We're happy to be here.
Thank you very much for letting us participate with you.
Oh, I am so delighted we get to spend this time together. I mean, your book really kind of changes things up, kind of shakes up astrology.
It kind of changes up the way that we look at managing our lives.
Mm-hmm. All
just
the above.
Yes, all of it. The subtitle of the book is Charting the Spirals of Consciousness, and that's the reason we wrote the book, is to help people understand that we can actually map out our spiritual journey.
Well, and that is something that I think a lot of people are very interested in. It's like, how do we do that? But before we get too much into that, I would love for us kind of just to dive in a little bit in regards to both of your personal stories, because you both are starseed, and for our listeners that are kind of new to maybe what starseed is, why don't you share that with us and just your journey?
Well, we can tell you that ever since we were born, we have both felt like we were a little bit different because we could tune into things that other people didn't see or hear. Connections with angelic realms, other beings talking to us that people couldn't see, the David Kingdom. Cullen, you want to tell them about what you started at 4 and then at 7?
Well, I think we started out as children as a little bit different, as Pia just explained. When we got here this time, we seemed to be connected to other places and other realms in addition to being here on Earth. And we had some pretty unusual experiences. I started working with healing when I was about 4 years old. I had a little playmate that I knew didn't feel well, and one day I touched her and I realized that she had a cancerous tumor. And I mean, at 4 years old, I had basically no idea what I was doing, but I pulled that tumor out of her, and she was completely well directly after that. And 4 or 5 years later, I was contacted by the David Kingdom, and I agreed to grow a special garden that I didn't understand at the time. But years later, when Findhorn began in Scotland, and I realized that they were communicating with the David Kingdom, I thought, aha, that's what I was doing when I was 7 and 8 years old. I grew this fantastic garden with fruits and vegetables that ended up being 5, 10, 15 times their size, growing quite quickly. And I knew something was going on, but I didn't quite understand what it was.
Wow, that is just amazing. And it's interesting because when we look at the experiences that both of you had as children, realizing how different you were from other people, I mean, that's quite a thing to recognize at such a young age.
Yes, but we didn't understand why other people didn't see and do the same things that we did, and gradually we understood that we were different on purpose, and it was a gift.
We thought it was normal, actually. And I'm laughing because I think we soon began to understand that it wasn't really quite normal.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because when you are that age, you can see these things, you just expect for it to be the way, that everyone can have the same visual or perceptions that the both of you have. And so to have that realization is, again, such an extraordinary thing. Well, and so when we talk about starseed, we talk about people who, not only realize that they're not of this planet, But then we kind of get into, in your book, we talk about Pleiadians. And I would love for you to share a little bit about the Pleiadians that you're connected with, and what are their names? Because I know you have a name for them.
The group of Pleiadians that we are connected with is Larkma, only they say it Larkma, very musically and drawn out, a big difference than the way we say it with our clipped English accents.
We were living quite, this is going to sound funny again, we were leading what we thought were quite normal lives. And one day we were introduced to these friends, and they told us that they were 1 of 6 and 6 of 1. And Pia and I looked at each other and went, what does that mean? And they said, we are a collective of 6, but we have individual traits and we have individual interests, but we work within a unified field.
So even though we had spoken with varying realms all of our lives, we had never anticipated that we would be communicating specifically with this Pleiadian group. It was quite an amazing thing for us. But we shouldn't have been too surprised, because experiences with what we call interdimensional or interstellar energies have occurred since the dawn of humanity. Stories about involvement with extraterrestrials exist in Aboriginal Australia, in the African Dogon tribe, with the Maya, the Maori, in Russia, America, probably everywhere all over the world. So it's something that's been part of human history, and it's been put in the margins as being sort of woo-woo, but it actually is part of our human history.
Kind of a forgotten and lost piece of human history, that we're...
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, that's just amazing to have that connection. And what is it like for the two of you when you are connecting with Larkma? And I know I'm saying it wrong because they say it so beautifully.
Well, no, you actually in English you're pronouncing it exactly as we say it.
It's magical and wonderful. They take us out of our everyday third dimensional experience, and we become much more expansive, and the energy flows through as they're revealing whatever wisdom they wish to share. The interesting thing about our connection with them is that they require Cullen and me to be physically touching before they communicate with us. And you want to explain why that is?
We thought that was really interesting and a little unusual. And they explained to us immediately that they wanted both of us to receive what they were transmitting to us simultaneously, so that each of us would bring forward exactly what they were saying, so that we wouldn't filter it through our own egos or our own belief systems. So it's really quite interesting. We cancel out any opinion or any of our own personal prejudices by both of us receiving it simultaneously. So it's quite different. Many channels are single people who simply receive the messages on their own. I think we're quite unusual that we do it together simultaneously.
But the extra piece of that is Cullen and I are completely opposite in almost everything about the way we are, except our worldview and our love. We see everything from completely opposite perspectives most of the time. So whenever Larkma is presenting information to us, we always see the same way, no matter what they say, because the filterization is canceled out that we experience in our normal everyday life. It's very interesting.
That is absolutely fascinating. And I would think that with the need for the two of you to, be touching in order for the channel to take place, that you both were kind of predestined to meet one another.
Oh, well, that's pretty funny for us. I would say the very minute we met, something changed in our makeup, and within days and weeks of starting a life together, we started noticing changes all around us. Want to explain that?
The Pleiadians started making themselves very apparent in our lives in a very real 3D way. The best story I can tell you is one night we came home from dinner together, and this was when we had just immediately, as Cullen said, joined our lives together. And we pulled in front of the house, and we were about to turn the lights off and go inside, and all of a sudden, these 6 little wave-like figures moved in front of the headlights between the car and the house. And I looked at Cullen and said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "I did. Did you see that?" And we realized that this was a group of friends from another dimension or something, but we didn't know what it was because we weren't actually communicating with them yet, but they made themselves apparent to us visually first.
And then this progressed into things happening around our home. Some people would call it poltergeist-like activity, the classic things of lights turning on and off, doors opening and closing, water faucets turning on and off.
But it wasn't scary like a poltergeist.
No, it was fascinating.
Fascinating, and it was curious. And when we finally began actually communicating with this Pleiadian group, we asked them questions like, first of all, did you turn the water on when this was happening? And if so, why? And they said, yes, we used our energy to turn the water on. And we would say, well, why did you do that? And they said, you needed more flow in your life. You were stuck at the moment.
And they used example after example of these little experiences we had. One day, I had put my shoes in a certain direction at the bedside. The next morning, the shoes were positioned in an opposite direction. And I looked at it and I thought, this is really strange. So we asked again, why did you do that? And they said, well, maybe it's time that you start walking on a different path in a different way.
Oh, that's
so
clever.
This went on and on for a number of months.
Until they actually began to communicate with us with verbal communication, where Cullen and I were simultaneously receiving the messages and speaking them out loud as they were coming through us. I would say, I just got, we are 1 of 6 and 6 of 1. And Cullen would say, that's exactly what I just got. And then he would say, they say they're here to help us because they love humanity. And I would say, that's exactly the words I just heard. So we realized pretty quickly that we were verifying each other's experience by both of us having the identical message come through simultaneously.
And this also was very interesting to us because we were both professionals in our own trained fields, nothing to do with interstellar communication or all of the things that they brought to us, quantum physics, future of medicine, future transportation ideas.
Binary systems.
All these things that they began to speak to us about, and then we realized this is really a deep, deep connection. And then we had to laugh because at the time, Pia was a clinical psychologist.
So you can imagine my telling my colleagues that I was hearing voices. We laugh at that now, but luckily I was living in a very progressive community at the time. We were living in Boulder, Colorado, and the community was very open to such things. And when they heard we were expanding it, they wanted to hear what the messages were too, and they thought it was great.
So that actually began our, I guess I could call it
our career change
into a new adventure. And Larkma began asking us, after we spoke to them day after day after day for about 6 months, they said, would you mind beginning to speak to the public? Could you organize groups to come and listen to us?
And by the way, would you mind writing a couple of books containing the things we've told you?
And Pia and I looked at each other and went, wow, this is a big jump.
So we stepped away from our former professional careers and we began doing this as our life work. Haven't looked back since.
Oh my goodness, what a just a beautiful story your life has been. The unfolding of all of that. I mean, you can't even plan that kind of stuff, you know?
No,
it's absolutely unplanned.
Well, it's absolutely. I think it's so beautiful how you guys not only came together and the connection that you have with Larkma, but also, I mean, it's really having us look at not just consciousness and astrology, but just our world in a totally different way.
Yes. Well, the astrology book that we have just finished it's listed as the title as astrology, but it's really not a book on traditional astrology at all. It's a book about learning to govern our lives by understanding energy rather than governing our lives with the calendar of a clock.
We have come to understand through this association with our friends that everything, and I mean everything, is energy.
Including us.
Everything in the universe is made up of energy. And what the Pleiadians have taught us is that time doesn't really exist. And I know this is a concept that's being tossed around in the past, has been tossed around the past few years, that time is actually a human construct. It's not a universal truth or understanding. And we can look back historically. The Gregorian calendar was introduced, I believe, about 1582, and the first mechanical clock was designed not quite 100 years after that, in 1656. And I think truly we've been imprisoned and enslaved by time since those two occurrences. Everything has to do with time on this planet. Everybody gets up, everybody goes to bed, everybody goes to work. Everybody does everything through linear time, either a clock or a 12-month, 7-day calendar.
So the Pleiadians are trying to teach us how to understand energy more personally so that we can understand the energy of the day, what the day is presenting with its gifts and its challenges, and how we can interact with the day, what the energy of ourselves is, how we ourselves are made up with our gifts and our own challenges for growth or opportunities for evolution, how we engage with others, whether it's in a personal relationship or work relationship, a mother and a child, whatever it is. If you look at the energies that each person has within their makeup, it helps you understand why there are challenges, how to work through the challenges, and where the gifts are. So it's a really wonderful way of beginning to navigate life differently.
It's really quite interesting. We've been working with this system for over a decade. We wanted to be sure that we understood it so thoroughly that when we began to explain it to the public, it would make sense, and it would be a concise encyclopedia of information that would help people understand not only energy, but the fact that every relationship in the universe has to do with energy. And so what we've done is compile this information in order to help people more easily, with more grace and flow, move through their lives.
We also, Marianne, designed a calendar to go with the book that people can look at. It has beautiful pictures on it and has inspirational sayings on each page. But the primary purpose of the calendar is for people to begin to look at what the energies are of each day that you live through. And we've got a little glossary in the back saying this energy means this and this energy means that. So people can actually look at it and say, oh, well, no wonder I'm feeling like this today.
We wanted to introduce the book with the companion calendar and vice versa. We wanted to introduce the calendar with the companion book so that people would have a greater understanding of this new system.
Well, and it really does. I think you're right when we talk about how time keeps us trapped, because we are so focused, especially nowadays, with being so attached to our devices. You know, and
yes.
Calendar reminders going off 24/7, and you know, it's tough for some people to unplug and get beyond that.
Yes, it's breaking old patterns and learning new ways of being in the world, and that can be scary for some folks because we become quite familiar with things that we're used to, and when we know what works, we want to stick with it, even if sometimes it doesn't work as well as we want it to. But if we try to step out and do something different, it could be jumping, a little bit like jumping off of a cliff. You've got to trust that you're going to be able to either fly when you jump or that you're going to land somewhere that works better for you than where you are.
Pia and I have been interested in other astrological systems for our entire lives. We're quite familiar with Western astrology, Vedic astrology, Chinese astrology, and we've certainly used those systems as tools which have helped us greatly. But when we were introduced to this system and decided to really get involved with it, we tested it, as I said a few moments ago. We've spent over a decade working with this, and we think this new system, which we think is absolutely revolutionary, can be much more predictive and much more
helpful
than possibly other systems. We've used retroactive perspectives. We've lived through certain things like everybody does. I can joke and say bad hair days at the lighter end, and much more difficult, much more challenging situations at the higher level of challenge and possible problematic situations. And when we look at this through this system, we can pinpoint retroactively and say, oh my gosh, that's exactly what was happening on that day precisely.
And as we begin to look at it retroactively, we begin to see how to use it proactively for the future. Oh, this energetic period is not going to be good for doing such and such, so let's do something else. So we begin to gain control over our lives just a little bit better. The other thing that I like about this new system compared to regular Western astrology is that you don't have to look at transits and progressions and angles and relationships of all the different charts that you do in Western or Vedic astrology. You simply look at two spiraling systems, the universal energies, which go from 1 to 13, and 20 earth energies that describe our conscious experience here on this planet. And you look at just those two energies and learn just those two. It's really simple.
That makes it so much easier because astrology can get a little daunting when you look at all the things that you have to consider. And your book, Pleiadian-earth-energy astrology, I felt made it, when we talk about the astrology portion, it made it so much easier to understand.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. We're glad.
Did a beautiful job on it. Well,
thank you.
It leads me to the next question I have, because, here we are, these, spiritual beings having a physical experience. When we talk about our planet too, how does she feel about, the move of looking into more of a spiral, when we look at things in more of a spiral consciousness?
I think all of life moves in spirals. This new book that we have written in some ways is the progression of a book that I wrote last year called Using Natural Cycles to Recharge Your Life, Sacred Retreat, Using Natural Cycles to Recharge Your Life. And it talks about how everything cycles in our experience here on Earth. We just took the cycling energy to the next level by looking at spirals, because spirals not only go around and around like a circle, they also move up and up and up. And I think that's what the Earth does. So because the Earth moves through her own spirals of ascension process or moving into other forms with her own movement, I think she's very, very much engaged in a spiraling process of evolution. And it's aligned with this energy that we're looking at.
We talked about the importance of spirals in throughout the book, about how many systems, planetary systems, galaxies, not all, but for the most part, move in a spiral fashion.
Mm-hmm. And so we're just the ones that have to keep up with it. We're kind of the ones that are behind.
Well, I think we're not behind as much as we are unaware. I think the moment we start tuning into and becoming aware of these energetic patterns, everything clicks into place, because we know, oh, that's how that works. And so if you don't have that, it can feel like we're behind on the learning curve because we don't know anything about it, and we're constantly chasing ourselves, trying to catch up with the next thing, and finding out that time runs out and we don't have enough time to do anything. But if you dismiss time just a little bit and start working with energy a bit more, all of a sudden your days get more flow in them and you have more space to do what it is that truly matters.
Well, that is so important. And you know what? And that's why your book is so profound. I mean, it covers so much, we'll never cover it all today. There's no way, but you have to really read it to have this, I think, this deep understanding of what you're talking about when you talk about spirals in consciousness and how this all integrates, into our lives. It's something that we can use today. It's not something that we have to do a whole lot of study for to start really kind of, like you're saying, being aware of this in progress.
You mentioned, when we started this conversation today, you mentioned something about many of your listeners may not be familiar with the idea of starseeds or interdimensional or interstellar communications. And one thing that I wanted to say is that this is the third in a series of books that we have written for LARCMA, containing different perspectives of Pleiadian wisdom. And it's a bit of a departure because the first book is more of a question and answer thing where we were asking LARCMA specific questions and they were explaining answers about how they view reality. And the second book, Remembering Who We Are, was LARCMA's position on what we can do to heal ourselves as a species. What's wrong with humans in our current illusion? And now that we've got the third book, it's moving us into a deeper exploration of energy. So they're a bit progressive.
Yeah, I think the three books are standalone works. They can be read independently quite well.
In any order.
But Pia, if they are picked up in any order, they're intelligent and they can work in their own form. But also reading them in order can make a completely different sense about the energy and the information.
For people who want to know a little bit more about what the Pleiadians really talk about before they dive into the depths of understanding the energy progressions. But those who are curious about energy might want to start right there and say, let's just start here.
That makes perfect sense because for somebody that's new to Pleiadian energy and the Pleiadians, it really helps to give a very good starting point with your first book you were talking about in Conversations with LARCMA, because then they can kind of go from there and progress to where this book is. But as you're saying, it's not like they need to have that base point. They can really start with Pleiadian-earth-energy astrology.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think I have time for one more question here, because I know in your book, I've got all these little tabs here to talk about. I know in your book you talk about here we go. All my tabs are getting away from me. We talk about earth energies, and you've got 20 of them. We didn't want to go to every single one, but when we talk about earth energies, is this something that is that people can easily understand? Because I know you have them listed in your book.
I think that people can understand that living in a planet of duality, there's always two perspectives to anything. And in the same manner, each of the 20 earth energies has a high road and a low road. In other words, somebody can have the energy of, let's say, listening. And the energy of listening is to have the ability to go deeply within, to meditate easily, to be quiet, to be silent, that deep, silent personality. That can be the essence of the energy they were born to, in this particular lifetime, to focus on. And yet they may be completely asleep and they don't know what that is. They just know they're not comfortable out in social settings or they don't know how to speak up. Yet someone who is on the high road and who's a bit more awake and aware can have listening energy as their makeup, and they can immediately go into a meditative state when they need to. They know how to listen to other people when they're talking. So there's a way to look at the energy of what each person is as what am I missing that I don't know about myself, and how can I open to learning more and be more evolved, and what are my gifts and talents within this energy. So each of the 20 have a different perspective depending on where the person is in their own personal journey of evolution. And there are, as you said, there are 20 of them. One of them is enlightening, meaning the capacity to bring light into the world, to be able to share perspectives. And again, somebody may be really, really aware that that's their life purpose and that's what they're trying to do, is to help people understand higher evolutionary concepts. Or they may feel like, I really have something to share, but I don't know what it is. meaning they haven't quite waked up to their purpose yet. So as you explore what each energy is, each person can see where their challenges are, where their strengths are, and what they need to do to evolve on their own journey. It's a lovely thing. I do personal charts for people who want to look at it and it's a little bit overwhelming for them. I'll look it up for them and explain it to them, and I can ask questions about how it affects their lives, their relationships, their work, whatever they like. But the book explains it for those who want to do it on their own, and those who don't want to do it on their own can contact me for an astrological reading.
I think that's fabulous. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, don't you have where people can schedule like a personal session with Larkma as well?
We do, and that's another humorous story. I don't know how much time we have left. I'll try to make this short, but we've been lecturing around the world for 10 or 12 years, speaking to small groups here and there, speaking to really large groups in certain places. And people would always come up to us after a symposium and say, well, can I talk to Larkma personally? And we would always say, no, they don't do that. They want to reach as many people as possible in public settings. And we were always kind of sad that people couldn't connect like that. And then one day,
we were having an international live call, which we do once a month. They're free for people to join in and just get a taste of what it's like to hear Larkma and what they have to say. And we were doing this on this big international call one day, and
Larkma announced, they said, we're sure Pia and Cullen will agree with this. They hadn't talked to us about it previously. They said, we are now going to offer personal sessions, and we wish to call them synchronizations because we will synchronize our energy with individuals for the first time. Pia and I were overwhelmed at the end of that call, and this was quite a few years ago, and we began scheduling people to be able to speak to them directly, and it has been an amazing adventure.
And so when someone attends, let's say they sign up for a personalized synchronization session, what does that look like?
Well, it looks like for the first time, generally, people start on the telephone line saying they're really nervous and they don't know what to do. And we just laugh and say, no need to be nervous because Larkma will make you feel completely at ease. And just relax and you'll figure it out together. And then we move into our space of connecting with Larkma and out of our personalities as Pia and Cullen. And then Larkma comes through, and oftentimes they'll laugh or they'll say something just to completely put the person at ease. And then sometimes they will say, do you have questions? And the person will ask whatever questions they have. And other times they'll say, oh, well, we see you're having a problem with this area of your life. Or did you know you have this health problem? We'd like to help you correct it. So sometimes they speak, initiate what's going to happen in the conversation. And some people, the people calling in, will initiate it with their questions.
But Larkma will say at the onset, no matter where this begins, it will become a full and complete circle. You will understand exactly what you need to know, and we will help you navigate what will help you the most.
They also are very big on telling everybody in public gatherings or personal synchronizations, don't believe us. Trust in your own heart. We're only sharing our perspective, but you have to empower yourself to listen to your own heart where the answers live. All we're doing is sharing our perspective to help you reach that place where you have the answers in your own heart.
I love that. It sounds like it's just such a deep personal connection with them, even though it can be done over the phone.
Yes, it is.
It is. And people have told us over the years that this was the most deep, the most interesting, the most helpful time I've ever spent with anybody in any kind of session. So people are truly helped by this.
We have a group of testimonials listed on our website about what people have told us after some of the sessions, not all, of course, there are too many. But one that really made Cullen and me laugh, especially since I was a psychologist for so long, is one person wrote in a testimonial saying, that one session with Larkma helped me more than 15 years of therapy with my psychologist. And I just laughed. That's great.
Oh my goodness. Well, and that's so interesting, especially because of your line of work and your
Right.
both of your backgrounds. I could see where that would make you chuckle. So, oh my goodness. Well, Pia and Cullen, we can spend so much time talking about this. Your book, Pleiadian Earth-Energy Astrology, I felt was really amazing. And of course, it's going to be in our book club this month. How exciting is that? Where can people connect with the both of you and be part of your community?
The easiest thing to do is go to the website. We have two websites. The first one is LARKMA, LAARKMAA.com. And on that website under books, you can find the calendar that we were talking about that we've created for 2019. You can find access to all of the books that LARKMA has asked us to write. We have blogs that we talk about various things, and we have a way for people to sign up for newsletters. And if you get the newsletter, which only comes out once a week, it just announces when the live calls are going to be, and it gives you a weekly message, which is usually about 2 minutes long, where LARKMA gives some perspective of uplifting advice on how to get through the week. So that's the easiest way to connect with us initially. It's also the place there that you can sign up for synchronizations if you want one, or any of the other things that we offer. The secondary website is Pia, Pia Orleane, ORLEANE, .com. And on that site, you can find all of the astrological system and intuitive readings that I do for people as well. So if you wanted to have an astrological reading, there's many ways that you can do that. There's a full chart, which includes a consultation. There's just a short consultation you can do for half an hour. There's things that people do for their children. What do I need to know about my child? Many different ways that you can look at getting an astrological reading and assistance in that vein.
Well, the New Year's just right around the corner. I couldn't think of a better way than starting it than having not only purchasing the book, Pleiadian Earth-Energy Astrology, but also scheduling some time with the both of you, and of course LARKMA, and seeing how you can start the new year off right.
That's wonderful. That would be a wonderful gift for us to be in your company. We'd like to be in the presence of anybody who wants to do this with LARKMA. It's a gift for us as well because we get to meet so many wonderful people. There's one thing we wanted to say about the personal synchronizations as well. When we're in our public gatherings with LARKMA, we remember everything they say. But when they're doing something personal with people, they laugh and say they've installed an on-off switch, and they switch us off so that we don't remember anything that is said. And that way the session remains completely confidential.
So people can feel comfortable asking any questions or discussing anything because they know unless they share that, we record the sessions and send them to the person who has synchronized with LARKMA. Unless they share that session verbally with friends or loved ones or share the recording, no one will ever know what took place.
That is, that's so amazing. And I'm so glad that you shared that because I'm sure that's a question some people think about. So, my goodness, we've got that down. People can visit LARKMA, LAARKMAA.com to learn more. Pia and Cullen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It has been an absolute delight, and we're so grateful that you've invited us on the show.
It was a wonderful experience.
It's been such an honor to spend this time with the both of you, and of course, not only to talk about LARKMA, but your new book, Pleiadian Earth-Energy Astrology. Again, you can buy Pleiadian Earth-Energy Astrology at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and of course, all indie bookstores. For more information on Pia and Cullen, you can visit their website, larkma.com. That's spelled LAARKMAA.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.